Paragon of Dragons, Saga 1, Part 2. Her name. Xander is a 7-foot tall male centurion with a muscular build, long dark hair down to his shoulders, dark tail, and reddish fur. He wears leather armor. From his waist down, he is equipped with a shield and sword. He spots a lone centurion female hiding in the bushes. He arches an eyebrow and scratches his head at the sight as he hides behind a tree closest to him. Who is this girl? I've never seen her around the village before, Xander thinks. He begins to quietly approach her, hoping he doesn't startle her. And why is she naked in the forest, he thinks. Why do I feel uneasy all of a sudden? The girl thinks in her male voice. She begins to look around, feeling a bit on edge. I feel like I'm being watched, she thinks in her male voice. That's when she notices movement out of the corner of her eye. She quickly turns to look and sees Xander approaching her. Shit, I've been spotted. Not good. And this guy's huge, she thinks in her male voice as she watches Xander walking towards her. Well now, it seems that she's spotted me, Xander thinks as he stops his approach. The two look at each other in silence for a moment. After around 2 minutes, Xander clears his throat. Well, hello, young lady. What brings you all the way out here? And if I may ask, why are you naked? Did someone steal your clothing while you bathe? He asks in a calm manner, sensing the girl's nervousness and choosing to hide for a reason. The girl looks at Xander and then takes in a deep breath. As she notices the sentry stop a safe distance away, and then Xander spoke calmly, she pondered on how to answer him. I honestly don't know how I ended up here. I woke up in the forest, then followed the trail here, she answers, letting out a sigh. I see. How about I help you with your immediate problem? Allow me to go talk to one of the girls in the village and get something for you to wear, Xander says. But before I go, may I know your name, my lady? It may help us in the long run, he adds. My name? She struggles to come up with a name. She does remember her name, but she also knows the name won't fit her current form. Xander watches her as she struggles with the question. Why don't I get you the clothes, and we'll come back to that question when I return, he says as he walks past her, heading down into the village. She watches him as he makes his way down the hill toward the village. Once there, he heads to the laundry area and gets hold of one of the girls. After a small talk, the girl Xander is talking to points to some clothing drying on the line. The girl on the hill watches as Xander goes through the clothing and notices he picks out a red top and loincloth. Red? That's going to make me stick out like a sore thumb, she thinks to herself in her male voice as Xander makes his way back up the hill. Here we are, some fresh clothing. I promise not to look while you get dressed, Xander says as he puts the clothing on a tree branch and turns around so that he faces away from her. The female centurion hesitates at first, but lets out a sigh as she stands up and walks over to the hanging clothing. She looks over the clothing and reluctantly manages to put on the loincloth. The top, on the other hand, proved a little more difficult since she's never had to put a top on over a pair of breasts before. All right, you can turn around now, she says, finally managing to pull the top down over the pair of breasts. Xander turns around, and when he sees her, he softly blushes as he takes in her appearance. Her light brown hair and tail waft softly in the breeze. He clears his throat once again. So, care to tell me more about yourself, or at least your name? He asks softly with a smile. The girl looks at Xander and ponders on what to say. With a heavy sigh, she tells him the truth, starting with how she was a human male before she woke up in the woods, that her name is Jake back home. Xander's eyebrow arches, especially when he hears her name. That's quite a tale, Jake, I must say, Xander says. I understand if you don't believe me. and think I'm some kind of crazy person. I'm here and I still don't believe it myself, she says with a heavy sigh. Actually, Jake, there have been a few legends passed down many generations of similar stories all over Aria. Xander explains as he places a hand on her shoulder to comfort her. Jake looks up at him, and Xander offers her a friendly smile that puts her at some ease. I've never introduced myself, did I? Well, I am Xander Sky, Sergeant of the Guard here in Eagle Pass Village, he says with blush. Also, as I was getting your clothing, I came up with a name for you. In case you couldn't remember yours by the time I got back, he adds. You did. I suppose I could hear it. Maybe use it, possibly considering I'm not in Kansas anymore. Jake says never thought he would ever in a million years say that line. Kansas? Is that the world you hail from? Xander asks. No, it's more of a well-known phrase from my world, she tries to explain. Ah, I see. Well, the name I came up with is Kiva, my mother's name. She was known for her fiery temper and aggression on the battlefield, in the Archduke's army, Xander explains. Jake looks at Xander for a moment. Xander? I like her name, it sounds strong, and your mother sounds like an incredible woman. I would be honored to borrow her name until I can find a way back home and return to normal, Kiva says. Xander smiles and opens his mouth to speak, but he suddenly feels a chill run along his spine, and the wind picks up around them. A looming darkness starts to cover the sky, shadowing the village. Feeling uneasy, Xander begins to look around and his jaw drops and his eyes grow wide. His face turns extremely pale when he sees Kronos hovering over the village. Xander, what's the matter? You look like you've seen a ghost, Kiva says as she turns to see what Xander is looking at. She immediately feels her blood run cold at the sight before her. She takes a couple steps back and stumbles, landing on her ass with a loud thud. Is that a dragon? A real-life dragon? Living, breathing dragon? Kiva shrieks in a shaky voice. Xander quickly turns and grabs Kiva's arms firmly and lifts her off the ground in a slightly rough manner so he can make eye contact with her. Listen to me, Kiva. We don't have much time. I'm going down to aid my fellow sentries. I want you to stay low and out of sight. If the situation becomes too dire, run. Run away and head north to the human city of Solus. They have a Paragon. He'll know what to do, Xander says firmly. You are not to engage the great dragon under any circumstances. Understand? They are powerful ancient beings who wield the strongest magic known in our world, he adds. Kiva can feel Xander's hands tremble as they both hear someone scream out of the village. Dragon! The village warning bell rings out. Kiva nods at Xander and his instructions. Seeing her nod, Xander runs down the hill at top speed, drawing his sword and shield. You do you, Xander, Kiva says to herself, looking at the village as her hands become fists. What the hell is a Paragon? She says softly, watching the event unfold. Sentries scramble into place while a handful of them escort fleeing villagers into the forest for cover. Kiva then notices a small band of archers forming ranks. She can hear the captain bark orders for the impending battle. As the events unfolds, many of the sentries, including Xander, are confused about why Kronos has not attacked the village yet. Kronos suddenly swoops down towards the village. As he dives, his body begins to glow with a brilliant white light. Just before he hits the ground, he emits a booming roar, and the light glows brighter. The sentries shut their eyes and cover their ears. A sudden bolt of lightning followed by a crash of thunder hits the ground, and Kronos' dragon body disappears. Before the sentries now is an 8-foot-tall human-looking figure on one knee with a lowered head. When he raises his head, a glow of red is briefly seen in his eyes, and Kronos suddenly rises to his feet. His dark hair flows in the wind. His ears are pointed, and the dark armor he wears has a small gleam to it from the sunlight. Kronos surveys the sentries before him. Suddenly, he charges the captain and grabs him by the throat. He then speaks out to the other sentries in an ancient language that they don't understand or recognize. To be continued.